And then I did meet with the IT ad hoc committee back in early October. And at that meeting, we discussed some of the options, which I will go through in the presentation I have. We discussed some of the options, and then an issue came up regarding ADA compliance. In designing the district's new website, one of the goals was to be ADA compliant with the website. And the question came up, well, is that required with video streaming? So we looked into it, and we asked Joel and his group to look into it, and it turns out with video streaming of meetings, it's not a requirement. So what I'm going to present today are just various options. I'm not going to include the closed captioning costs, which are part of would be part of ADA compliance.
Can I ask a real quick question? Do you think that's coming though really soon? And if we were to pass something without the closed caption, can we go back later and get that closed caption put into the whole thing?
I understand the question.
Clear.
Yeah, I understand the question. The whether or not it's coming, that's hard to say. Websites, it's becoming more and more de facto. Whether it's coming with, there are other options with meetings.
Okay.
For example, coming to a meeting. We do have assisted hearing devices for the meeting that are available.
Oh,
But if we were to implement one of these options, could we later go back and do it? Yes.
Okay.
There might be some costs to do it. There might be, but yes, we could.
The same cost as
No,
you're
there would be
reflecting?
more. No,
More?
it would be
Okay.
more.
All right, thank you.
So the approach I took, I looked at two approaches. Approach one, I'm calling approach one is live and on-demand video. So live streaming is the meeting's going on, we've got a camera or more cameras, and it's actually streaming through the internet where the audience is able to view it live. And typically, any live streaming usually has a follow-on, has an on-demand component. So afterwards, the audience can go back in days later, or weeks later, or months later, and then review the meeting video. And usually, the on-demand video is posted several days later, 2 to 4 days later.
Oh, that long.
Yeah, it can be, yes. So within approach one, I looked at two different options. A fixed camera, and I tried to make, with my really bad photoshopping skills, I have a single camera with the boardroom, and I have a 3 camera in the boardroom. And then I looked.
That's so you can get my best side if I'm still here.
What side's your best side?
I didn't know I had one.
You don't have a bad side. Yeah.
So, and then I looked at approach 2, which was strictly on-demand video. So that's basically video meeting, do some post-editing and post-production work to it, and then upload it to a service. And I looked at two different options: a videographer, cameraman. And then I looked again at one fixed camera in the boardroom. By the way, I changed this up a little bit from how I had it presented in as just dry tables in the staff report. Tried to make it a little bit more, a little cleaner. So now we're looking at approach one, live and on demand. And I've labeled them so we can refer to different options. But option 1A would be actually both of these options would be a single fixed camera in the boardroom. And it would have to be located. And I stood up on a chair in the very back and tried to take a look at what would one camera trying to take the entire board, the general manager's table, and then maybe the presenter and what's on the screen. Really try to get the most. Be one fixed camera using a service. So I think everyone's familiar with Granicus. A lot of cities use a service called Granicus. There are a few other services out there. One of them that's growing in use is Swagit. But Granicus is another one. The capital cost to do this would be about $13,500. And included in those costs would be, there's several things. One is there's some equipment that's required by the service. It's called video encoder. There's cabling, there's the cost of the camera. And then we have to do a little bit of additions to our audiovisual system in the boardroom just to get audio feed to the camera system. Right now what's happening for Waco, for example, we bring in a cameraman, the cameraman films a meeting, we record it, we have a built-in recorder in the boardroom, we record it and then we provide the cameraman with that recording and then he blends, merges the two. That's okay on a onesie, twosie type of recording. But if we're going to go into production, oh, and I made an assumption of 60 meetings a year, so that's 5 meetings a month, 2 board meetings, 3 committee meetings. And I use 3 hours per meeting. A lot of times they're less, but sometimes lately they've been 3 hours. So, so this is all just.
All in the boardroom or some?
They're all
here?
in the. This is all in the boardroom.
But how can that happen? The
We would
three
just have
committees?
to,
Just have to move everything.
Okay, is it?
Any cost to do it in this room?
No,
to add
that's
this-
what you
okay,
said.
yeah.
I just wondered how it was going to happen.
There would be additional costs to set that up in this room.
Okay.
So we have some capital costs. Now the ongoing yearly, the Granicus cost is a little bit less than the Swagat cost. So in this scenario, what would happen is we'd have one camera mounted on the ceiling. Before the meeting starts, we'd have somebody turn it on, and this would now start streaming immediately to one of the services. The Swagat service, when it streams to Swagat, they will index it, and they will, for each section of the meeting, item number 1, item number 2, they will index the video and record it. For Granicus, what's not reflected in this cost is there's staff time, where staff has to actually, during the meeting, Granicus has another software package that somebody would have to sit there and actually go through and index the meeting as it goes along. And that would probably be a district secretary who's already doing quite a few other things during a meeting. So even though this cost reflected here is a little bit less, probably getting more for our money with Swagat. And looking at total first year costs, one fixed camera in the boardroom for 60 meetings a year would cost about $25,000, a little over $25,000 with Swagat, and about $21,000 with Granicus. Those are options 1A and 1B, live and on demand, one fixed camera. So now this is a similar approach, but with 3 cameras. It gets a little more complicated. 3 cameras gives us the ability to focus in on a director as they're speaking, switch over to a camera with a presenter who's speaking, switch over to a camera with the general manager or the legal counsel, and then also switch to the presentation in full screen. So it's really 3 cameras plus one computer input.
And what about the audience?
The cameras could probably be set up so there might be one that you probably want to have a camera back here this way. So when we have the podium set up here for public speakers, that camera could capture the general manager, could capture the speaker. So there's some options there. But it gets a little more complicated because now when you have multiple inputs, you have to have a mixer. And you have to have a way to switch between the different signals. So now we've got 4 signals, 3 cameras and 1 computer signal. You have to switch between the 3. So in a city, a lot of cities, there's a bigger control room. There's a control room. And because they have a franchise with the cable company, they probably have somebody from the cable company who's doing that, who's sitting in there switching the camera signals. And at the same time, so I looked at Swagat and I looked at Granicus, and again, with Swagat, as the video streams, Swagat is actually doing the indexing of the agenda, whereas Granicus, staff has to do that. This is 3 fixed live. One additional thing, though, that Swagat does here. So I got this cost. That's incorrect. It should be 45,000, 46,000. Right there.
Should be the sum.
Yeah, it should be the sum of those two. what Swagit will do is not only will they index it, but they will also remote control the cameras so that there's no staff involvement at all in doing this. They will remote control for facilities in Texas.
For the 46.
Yes. They'll remote control the cameras and do all the mixing live during the meeting. So that takes the having to staff the meeting in the evening. That should be 40, 15, 46.
7 and 32.
How do they know when to change? They're not there.
Yeah, that's a good question. That I don't have an answer to. I don't have an answer to that question. But they're doing it for some city councils. So
They probably see who's speaking and then just,
But they're paying someone back in Texas to.
right,
yeah.
to attend the board meeting.
You could do it, you could do it remotely.
But I mean, they'd have to. Okay.
You'd have to be listening and watching and moving cameras, like a drone.
Oh, we should have a drone up
You know, I'm sorry. I got these. I have actually have these two numbers incorrect. This should be 19. This is 19,740. I have it incorrect. So this should be a total of 54,552.
The labor cost.
I blew it.
Isn't a lot of that labor?
Yes. Some of it. Yeah. Some of it's labor.
Paying someone back in
Right.
Texas to
Yes.
do that.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah. So that's 54. Now with Granicus, the issue that I had trying to get some figures from Granicus is Swagit does all the work, even the installation, everything. Granicus refers you to one of their partners, who in Orange County happens to be Integrated Media Services, who's the company we hired to do the audiovisual installations in the boardroom and the conference room. And they gave me a ballpark figure, but I think it's really for a completely integrated system, integrated into our audiovisual system. However, they wanted $7,000 to really come in and do a design and figure out exactly what we needed, so I didn't go that far yet. So that's why I'm giving quite a bit higher range of costs with the Granicus. So again, so option 1C, the first year should be $54,532, and then
And that number is correct in your board packet?
yes.
Committee packet.
So approach one again is live and on demand, and I had two options. One was the one fixed camera, the other one was three fixed camera. The second approach was to go on demand only. So I looked. I spoke with and contacted two videographers. One was Barry Friedland, who came and spoke to the board meeting I think back in August, and Matt Liffring, who does work for Communication. I believe he did one of our Waco meetings. And their costs were pretty varied. Barry Friedland really does a lot of post-production work. He does probably cleaner production videos than what you might do for a board meeting. Although when I looked at some of Mr. Liffring's work, and he does some very nice work as well.
That's great.
But in Friedland's, he gave me a proposal from his company, Video Truck Productions, and essentially for a 3-hour meeting, it was $800. The 3-hour meeting, figuring it takes a total of 8 hours of his time to do it, so $800 a meeting. So that's what these costs are based on. And again, in Mr. Liffring's proposal, or costs, I don't actually have a proposal from him, he just has a flat rate. He's $75 an hour, 3-hour meeting, 3 times 75, and he does some post-production, but not a lot, not do a lot of post-production. And in both of these cases, then, we would, or the videographer would just upload these to a district YouTube page, which is free. There is some capital costs that would be involved, and that's primarily, again, to get the audio, some audio upgrades in the boardroom. And for Mr. Friedling, which is option 2A, the total first year cost would be about $53,000. And for Mr. Liffring would be about $18,500. neither of these cases would the videos be indexed to the agenda. It would just be a video of the board meeting uploaded to YouTube. We could pay, probably pay Mr. Friedman a little bit more, or work that into his agreement somehow, maybe to index it. So then,
Could Matt index it? I think the indexing is
it's
important.
just titling, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I'm sure that's something that we could discuss.
Go through it like a council meeting, it's just nice to not have to listen to 2
Oh.
hours waiting for an item. You can go straight to that
Right.
item,
Yeah.
indexing is important.
I think on YouTube how that actually gets done, but yes, understood. But then, I have 2 more other options, which are fixed cameras, but then I thought, well, there is one more option with a videographer, and that's just what we're doing right now for Waco. Bring in a videographer on an as-needed basis. So if it's a meeting that the board or the general manager, or whoever the board decides would be appropriate to make the decision, bring in the videographer on an as-needed basis, video the meeting, and then that can be posted on YouTube. So that's an alternative as well for consideration. And the cost there would just be on,
What were the capital costs involved on those options?
the capital costs are for the, that's primarily just audio. We need to add some audio hardware to the equipment board.
Wouldn't you still need to do that for 2F?
You know, not if it's occasion, if this is a few times a year, we can just do it the way we're doing it for Wake Up.
But
Provide
if it's at every board meeting, that's 60 or 24 meetings a year.
This one's not every board meeting. This is just high-profile meetings. Just when, yeah, these 2, yes, that would be every board meeting. This is just high-profile meetings. So,
Can we place this, I mean, I'd like to, can we index this and place it on our website? In addition to YouTube?
problem. The reason it's preferable to go to a service like YouTube or a Swag or another site is the primarily just the capacity.
Can our
of the
website have a link to that so you can?
Absolutely.
You can just, it'd be seamless,
Absolutely.
you would not even maybe know, you'd know, but it'd be
There are ways to
seamless.
do that.
We look
yes.
at board agendas.
So we can
a
make it
certain
available
day.
on our website and
We
then.
have a link on the website.
Right.
Oh, I like that.
You could even embed it.
Okay.
You could embed the video so that it actually plays it from YouTube, but in a window on the website. There are ways to do that. So that's option. Those are videographer options. 2F again is on demand or as requested, high-profile meetings. Then the other approach again is a fixed camera, which we talked about earlier, but this would be on demand only. It would be the capital costs would include. We now would have something. We would need something to record the meeting to, so we have some kind of a DVR or something. So the capital costs go up. Now we have the equipment from the service, either Swagit or Granicus. We have the camera, we have a DVR, and then again we have an ongoing yearly cost for the service. These would be then uploaded to the service, would be indexed, and then the total first year cost would be $31,440 for Swagit and about $27,000 for Granicus, although Granicus would require quite a bit more staff time involvement.
If we wanted to, could we occasionally stream a meeting, not have it, not have the every meeting, but ones that had more level of interest?
We could do that.
Yeah, would that involve Swagger, or would that be back to the RD2?
We could do it with Swagit.
Would that require
Because the-
capital cost?
Well, wasn't that basically,
That was on demand, but going to YouTube.
well, I mean, isn't
But
that
yes,
what you're asking?
2F hybrid.
Yes.
Well, I mean, basically, it would
Yes.
be,
But you could take
but I mean,
2F.
you're talking about a high-profile meeting.
Yeah, where you could stream that. You could do that live?
That's live streaming. right?
Yes.
Yeah.
On an occasional, that was a high profile meeting.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I just assumed every meeting, but that doesn't mean we would have to do every meeting. We could do, and with Swagit, I believe you pay on a monthly basis for a certain number of meetings.
But the capital cost is much higher on
Yeah, but this, yeah.
But you don't have to pay staff, they do it, but then with the on-demand, what's the delay?
On demand is, I believe, with these services, it's 2 days.
What about Matt and Mary?
Yeah, they're going to be at least 2 days.
Can I ask you, didn't you look at the third option, having a full-time person working for us and doing this? Just, you know,
I did not look at that option.
I think, I like to see that. Just have one person hired just to do and just upload on YouTube and, you know, person is available. Whether it's, and you're gonna have one-time capital cost of putting 3 cameras there. And just, you know, have him just keep on doing the same thing. And plus he could share the other responsibility within the media department that we'll be able to use. So I think,
Website.
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
That definitely is an approach.
I think you should look at that third option.
I'd love to have somebody, if we did this, have somebody responsible for it.
Because, yeah,
Not
because,
you, huh?
no, you guys, you're thinking about third party responsibility. You're talking to them and say, hey, is it done, is not done, and you're trying to answer the public that, hey, your video is not on. But here you have somebody full-time responsible. You can go to them, hey, listen, this has to be on, and if not, can you just get the clip for us for the board? I'm just thinking out.
Director City, that's definitely an approach we can take a look at. I mean, I think we've even talked a little bit about that.
And it will make it will skew the cost a little bit because.
I'd say, I bet you'd be going up.
Yeah.
As if
Probably
you-
not. Once you have the capital cost is done, I think
But a
you're looking at.
full-time employee,
Plus benefits.
With benefits.
benefits? I don't know.
Pretty stiff.
Well, no, but that's not on using just for that. You could use that particular person for, 50% of the time for, for other purposes within, like, working on our internet or working on our websites. I mean, there are many other functions within the agency that the guy should be able to carry on.
That assumes they have that skill set.
Well, that's
Skill,
what
a
you need.
website skill set is different than a videographer. It's like a
Yes.
No,
foot
they-
doctor
no,
and a
they
eyes,
merge together.
ENT.
Yeah, I think they
I
go
don't-
together.
They're pretty specialized. But I think it's an interesting concept that we should look at. I agree with you.
Does Andre do both of them? I know.
I think,
you're
well,
gonna kill me.
I know one individual who
Who
actually
has
can do
both.
some of those things, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's not, right now, that's not his job, and, but
we
he
could
does,
always
he does
hire
have some of those skills.
someone to
Yeah.
place on there.
Yeah, he's not real technical on the website as Drew is or something.
Do you have some more?
No, actually, this concludes my presentation, and the recommendation is just direct staff as appropriate.
Okay. Any of the directors have any comments or questions? Okay. You're on.
Yeah, I don't know if I should do this or not, but,
Identify yourself for the record.
okay, I don't have to, but I will. It's
Oh,
John
I
Earl.
just
I
think
just,
you
okay, all right, John Earl. And the key here is to have it live. That is absolutely key. It would be an improvement to have archive, but 2 days later, that's, people want to participate in their government and their democracy as quickly as possible. And there's no reason not to go forward with this in this day and age when so many other government agencies are doing this live and archived. And it looks like the Swagat, if that's what the company was called, the first option there for live streaming with multiple cameras was a pretty cost efficient way to go there. And I hope that you will keep in mind that it is difficult for people to attend these meetings. It is for whatever the justifications for your schedule or whatever, the streaming is absolutely necessary also because you have issues with this water board or this district and all water districts of transparency. And this would be a step forward in dealing with that. And there'd be a lot of people who would be interested in this, but even if it's relatively small, I'm not saying there's going to be hundreds of people watching it each time. Let's say there's only 3 or 4. it's only one or two or three people who come to these meetings that it takes to get a lot of other people involved in various issues. And let the public decide what's of interest to them, Director Sheldon, not just streaming on a selective basis. That indicates possible bias on the part of the board, and it's just going to give more doubts to the public. So, and lastly, I really think you need to figure out your rules for public comments here, because it's obvious from today that everybody is very confused about it, and it's completely unnecessary to have what happened here earlier happen at all. Thank you.
You all had a copy of Director Flory's comments, I'm assuming. And the only thing that I probably could argue a little bit about when she said there is widespread public interest. Frankly, other than half a dozen people who've attended the meetings, if that's widespread, then you have to change the definition of what widespread means. I can argue a little bit with that. Because other than the few people, half a dozen or so people that have come to the meetings, I have not talked to anybody in my area that's interested in streaming, so I don't know. Anybody else have any comments they want to make?
I'll agree with Jan in the sense that we can just move it to the board without recommendation. I think let the entire board listen to this again. I think the presentation was solid. Maybe adding Harry's suggestion and looking at staff person, although I don't agree with that. I think it should be there as a comparison. But
Bruce, excuse me, Bruce, how long would it take you to put together something as a full-time person doing this? I mean, the recommendation is to go to the 19th board meeting. Is that time enough to come up with adding an addition to this presentation? If you want to put it off till December, that would be nice.
I'm just thinking because I'm out all next week, so but if we were to try to get some numbers put together, probably between today and tomorrow, maybe your general manager.
Okay, I just excuse me for interrupting, Vince.
no, I think if it's even if it's a ballpark or gives us an idea, I think it'll be helpful.
Yeah, I'll pull something together.
But we won't hold you to like real specific.
If the skill sets are, if that skill set can be utilized in other areas, that would be very important to know as well.
Okay, well, the recommendation is to agendize for November 19th and to take action as appropriate, so.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Bring it to the board.
We can do that. Either John or I would give the presentation. Bruce, unfortunately, as he mentioned, he's out next week. But so there's detailed questions we may not be able to answer them. But I think in general we should be able to present what was presented to the committee today.
Do I have a second to the motion?
Bruce needs to be here.
May I have a second to the motion so
Sure,
we can
I'll
discuss
second
it? Thank you. Excuse me, Steve.
You won't be able to make the 19th?
No, I'm out of town.
That
We
Marcus,
could defer it.
Bruce.
Well, okay, if on the 19th, if there are some technical questions that cannot be answered, then we can also delay it again to December and wait for Bruce to be available. So I think that, I do have, is there any comment on the motion?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments.
Send over Bruce.
One, on the on-demand, Bruce, you said it will take 2 days. I've seen it come up faster than that. But I don't know what our process is. I don't know if it's that we slow it down, the videographer slows